Billionaire activist Tom Steyer is officially running for president. This week, he became the 25th Democrat vying for the nomination after initially saying that he would not run.
Steyer is known for being an environmentalist, and he's vowed to spend $100 million of his own money on his campaign. And Tom Steyer joins us now at the table to talk all about this.
Welcome back.
Welcome
back.
So the last time you were here with us, you were talking about your campaign to get the president impeached. Now it's your campaign to become the president. The first question everyone wants to know is what happened? In January, you said you weren't going to run. Now, a few months later, you changed your mind.
In January, I said I wasn't going to run then because I felt like it was my duty to the 6 million people who'd signed our need to impeach petition to push that forward. At this point, I think we've won that argument. I think everybody in D.C. recognizes at this point that this president is the most corrupt in history, that he's unfit for the office, and that he's a danger to the Constitution and the American people. I'm going to continue to fund need to impeach, but I've watched over the last 6.5 months, we've been pushing really hard for televised hearings so the American people could see what's going on and their voice could be the most important voice in this conversation. We've had one televised hearing, which was Michael Cohen. Mm-hmm. I've also at the same time been watching this campaign roll out. And to me, the biggest question in front of Americans is not who has the best plan, whose nuances on health or the Green New Deal are the most thoughtful. The real question is how are we going to get any of those plans? We have a broken government. We have a government that's been corrupted by corporate cash. And the question is, how do we return power to the people on all the issues? Because on virtually every issue, Washington is stuck in the mud. So the real question is not what, but how?
So, Mr. Steyer, fellow 2020 candidate Bernie Sanders, he responded to your announcement, and he says he likes you, but he says, and I'm going to quote him here, he says, "I'm a bit tired of seeing billionaires trying to buy political power." What's your response?
I don't think it's about money, and I don't think it's about me. I think there's a very specific question in front of everybody who wants to be president, and that's this. What is your vision for the American people about what we need to do? And do they care? And that's something money can't buy.
Right, but what Senator Sanders is saying is that if I had a specific vision for the country, I wouldn't be able to just jump willy-nilly into the race. I don't have $1 billion. You have a lot of money. You've been a very successful businessman. So that gives you the opportunity that eludes a lot of other people who might have the same ideas.
It has a negative impact on democracy because you essentially are able to sort of buy your way into this conversation.
Well, I have for the last 10 years been doing exactly what I'm doing now, which is actually to try and push power down and get the American people's voice to be heard. Look, in this race, and Senator's a perfect example, I'm an outsider. I've been doing it from the outside for 10 years successfully. If you look at the top 3 polling people, between them they have 70 years in the Congress or the Senate. The question here is if we're actually going to make this change, is it going to come from outside Washington, D.C., or is Washington, D.C. going to somehow reform itself? My argument is I've been doing it from the outside, successfully taking on the corporations and going around failed government. That's what I propose to do now. And that's what we're doing.
Critics will say you may be sort of a political outsider, but you have for a long time been a business insider. You made a lot of money off of fossil fuels, even though, you're an environmentalist. But there's a sense that there's a little bit of a hypocrisy here with your involvement, that, you make all this money off of fossil fuels as an example, but then talk about regulation and environmentalism.
Well, look, I ran an investment firm for a long time. We invested in every single thing, including fossil fuels. And as part of that process, I came to understand that there was something deeply wrong, starting really with fossil fuels, which is why I divested myself from it and became a climate activist over 10 years ago. And in fact, have been fighting the oil companies ever since. Because like everyone else in America, I was part of the fossil fuel economy. Listen, virtually everybody who's watching, and you guys, has been in a car recently that filled up at a pump. We have to change this society and get it away from what's the dramatic threat to us, which is climate change. That is a process that I'm trying to move as fast as possible, but it's one that all of America has to choose to make, and we have to choose to make that together in a dramatic and emergency fashion.
There's another sort of theme, I think, in the point that Senator Sanders is making, which is there was another outsider candidate who had lots of money, who said, forget all the folks in Washington, that swamp needs to be drained. pick me, that person is Donald Trump. And I wonder if when you look at the current environment, the current political environment that we're in right now, and people say, look, we've got a billionaire who ran for president. Part of the reason that you want to impeach this president is because you think he sullies the office of the presidency, among other things, as to what you've said. So how do you address that criticism that, look, we already have a billionaire in the office and it's not working out for some people who don't like President Trump?
But I think President Trump actually makes my point, which is that 8 out of 10 Americans, Democrats, Republicans, and independents, think that this government has been purchased by corporations. And his promise, the thing that resonated with him, the thing that still resonates with him, regardless of how incompetent and corrupt he is that people think he will bust the system. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly why he got elected, was because people have this profound sense that the government is broken, that it's been purchased, and it doesn't either respect or respond to the people. Of, by, and for the people is gone right now. Mm. And the question is, how do we return it? And that's what Mr. Trump, I think all of his decisions have been terrible, literally almost every single one. But the reason he resonated is because all of those 16 other very qualified insider Republicans, people looked at and said, no, you've been doing this for decades and it hasn't worked and it's not working now. It's time to really shake things up, and that's what I'm saying too.